Hello, BI412, Isaiah Jeremiah class, Beulah Heights University. This is week number 10 of the class. Last week you had a one-page writing assignment. If you have not submitted that, please submit it in the correct drop box so I can correctly grade it. Remember to get your assignments in on time. This week, we're going to continue the book of Isaiah. We're going to read chapters 13 through chapter 27 in the book of Isaiah. Read chapters 13 through 27, quite a bit of chapters to read. And we're going to read pages 135 through 218 in Stanley M. Horton's, forwarded by Roger D. Cotton, Isaiah Logicon Press Commentary. Make sure you're reading this book, pages 135 to page 218 in this book. Just a little bit about these chapters. Isaiah chapter 13 talks about the 12 burdens alternated with Israel's blessings, and also immediate judgment by the Medes and the Persians. Remember that. So 28-fold judgments in the day of the Lord. We read about the millennium, Israel restored and exalted, the future triumph song of Israel over the Antichrist, verses 4 through 6, the millennial rest, verses 7 and 8 of chapter 14, the sixfold taunt of hell to the Antichrist, the ninefold taunt of Lucifer. This is important. Isaiah 14, verses 12 through 15. Lucifer says, I will, I will, I will, I will. And that's what brought him down from his place as an angelic being to a demonic being, Lucifer, the archangel. The taunt of the living nations to the Antichrist, the tenfold desolations of the literal Babylon, God's sixfold oath to destroy the Antichrist, which is prophetic to come, the burden of Philistine, chapter 15, the burden of Moab, sudden desolation, the lamentation of Moab, that's chapter 15. Chapter 16, Moab, the protector of Israel in the tribulation, important for the future, the lamentation for Moab, the immediate destruction by Assyria. Chapter 17, the burden of Damascus, a remnant of Syria to be saved, the effect of turning to God, desolation, famine, woe to Israel's enemies. Chapter 18, the burden of Ethiopia, the judgment described, the future restoration. Chapter 19, the burden of Egypt, immediate confusion, tenfold desolation, eightfold curse, the day of the Lord. Egypt's going to convert it. Some of Israel will be converted. The millennial blessings, the traffic of peace. Chapter 20, the burden of Egypt and Ethiopia, the sign of Isaiah, the prediction of Isaiah by Isaiah. Chapter 21, the burden of Babylon, the spoilers, time and effect, the fall, the burden of Duma, the burden of Arabia. Chapter 22, the burden of Jerusalem, the lamentation for Jerusalem, the invaders that's coming, the vain defense preparations, sin, Eliakim exalted to the office, Shebna's security blasted. Chapter 23, the burden of Tyre. Remember that, the burden of Tyre. The Howl, the destroyer. Howl, the time of desolation. Chapter 24, good reading here. Chapter 24, tribulation and millennium. The 12-fold judgment, the 2-fold judgment, the 3-fold judgment, the 3-fold cause, the 20-fold curse, the rejoicing of the Jewish remnant that's going to be saved, the lamentation, the remnant of Israel, the 8-fold judgment, Armageddon, Satan is defeated, chapter 24, verse 21 and 22, the millennium, the 25, the 20-fold millennial worship, talks about the millennium, the blessings of God's people, the judgment on the enemies, the blessings on God's people. That's a theme in chapter 5. Chapter 26, the millennial song, salvation of the righteous, punishment of the wicked, the way of the righteous, the way of the wicked, the prayer for the righteous, resurrection of the just, preservation of the just, the destruction of the unjust. Chapter 27, Satan's defeated in Armageddon, a millennial song, inquiry of the Lord, ninefold judgment, and Israel is regathered. This is millennium. This is what is to come. Just so you know, my belief on this, in case this is a little extra a minute here because I know the video's running longer than usual. I believe the rapture of the church will happen. Some are pre-trib, some are mid-trib, some are post-trib. And after the pre-trib, the rapture, there's a 7-year tribulation. At the end of the 7-year tribulation, Jesus comes back with his church, and rules and reign 1,000 years. This is what, and there's variations. Some say, I'm a pre-trib rapture guy. There's others mid-trib, post-trib. I don't want to get involved too much debate on that. But then after Jesus comes back with his church, after the tribulation period, he rules and reigns 1,000 years on earth. That is when it talks about the millennium. That's what it's referring to in the book of Isaiah. So, this week, you'll do a discussion board. The call narrative, we're going to go back to chapter 5 and 6. The call narrative of the prophet Isaiah. Describe the scenario that Isaiah was called. How did God's presence affect him? Have you ever felt God's calling? Have you ever had an God encounter? Describe. So it almost goes along with your paper for chapter 9. So you can use some of those, some of your information on your last week's paper, your one-page paper, to do the initial post and the 2 replies. The initial post of 250 words is due by Thursday night at 11:59. These 2 replies are due by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So get those in on time. Welcome once again, week number 10, BI412, Isaiah Jeremiah class. We're in that book of Isaiah. Talk to you next week. God bless.